Just let me give you a little bit of a backstory. I think we all, as journalists, have passion pursuits. Long before I ever knew I was going to do this, and I've been doing it for over 30 years, I was told a story by my grandparents. My grandparents, my grandmother, my great-grandmother lived about a block apart in Northern California.
Okay.
And they told me a tale of a UFO encounter. And what was unique about it, Anita, was the specifics. They told me the story independently of one another. I was very curious about it, and I asked for specific details of each of them. And the story they told me was remarkable. And what they saw was not a flying saucer, but a rectangle, a dark rectangle in the middle of the night that made no sound. It absolutely had no thrust. It was dead silent. It hovered above them. A small window opened up. They saw some sort of beings in the window. And then in an instant, it disappeared before their eyes.
What year was this?
This was probably in the 80s.
Okay.
Okay.
And they both saw the very same thing.
They saw the very same thing. And I carried that with me, and I've carried it with me through the entirety of my career. And I've been one of those people that I've always wanted to know the truth, because I've always felt like, as Americans, as human beings, we've always been treated as children on this front. That the government, not only of this country, but of countries around the world, have been keeping one of the greatest secrets of humanity from us.
Did they know more than what they're releasing?
They know more than what they're releasing. So here we come with the age of disclosure. I had an opportunity to speak to Dan Farah, the filmmaker, and he, unlike movies of the past, documentaries of the past, the weight of his guests, of the people that he got to speak to him, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Kirsten Gillibrand, a senator who is on the Intelligence Committee, former naval aviators, Air Force personnel, Secretary of Defense, to admit that the government has not only been hiding the truth from us, but offering specific details. And a lot of this, Anita, comes from what you and I in the media and other journalists have been reporting for several years now, and that is the existence of what we call UAPs, this unidentified aerial phenomenon or anonymous phenomenon. And what makes these different from the UFOs that our mom and dads and our grandparents, these are not your mom and dad's flying saucers. These are objects, first and foremost, that do things that our technology is nowhere near capable of doing. So, for example, we talk about observables, hypersonic velocity. Our fastest planes known to man can do 4,000 miles an hour. These things are doing 40,000 miles an hour.
And I guess the thought would be, it doesn't have to be an alien. It could be surveillance of some sort.
We don't know with 100% certainty what it is. That said, there's a caveat there, but let me also say other things that they can do: instantaneous acceleration. So similar to what the story I told you about what my grandparents talked about with their own encounter, at a standstill and then taking off at the blink of an eye. We don't have that technology. So what happened was, thanks to whistleblowers, in particular a man named Lou Elizondo, who is prominent in this documentary, he and others became part of a task force. And what they did was they started taking a good hard look at a lot of the video that was taken from very credible sources. Again, Navy pilots, Air Force
who have long
pilots.
said that they have seen things.
And they were afraid to speak out because there's long been a stigma. You know, we talk about this tinfoil hat society, those of us that want to believe but we're afraid we're going to be criticized if we talk about it out loud. I've encountered it in my career, talking to intelligent people that kind of roll their eyes saying, sure, Scott, whatever you say. But the conversation, the narrative has really changed in recent years. And what they found out, these individuals who are part of this task force, is that since the 1940s, there's been something in our government called the Legacy Program. This is at the crux of this documentary. This is why I urge people, it's streaming right now. It's also in select theaters. If you have even a passing interest in what's going on with this possibility that we are not alone in the universe, watch this film because it is fascinating.
Well, they had a whole congressional hearing where, you're kind of like,
and they've called these whistleblowers, and they've talked about the fact that there is, within the government, this shadow organization that has been actively involved in a Cold War, Anita, right now with China, with Russia. And what they've done, and it's absolutely, it is sensational, but there is evidence with regard to what these people have seen These are people who were contracted by the U.S. government to conduct these investigations. Crashed crafts that have then been collected. These are exotic crafts. They've been collected secretly, and then their technology has been reverse engineered.
Oh.
Okay? And again, this is, I know it sounds crazy, but the fact that it is being kept top secret even from United States senators, from congressmen, from presidents.
Yeah.
And the reason is so they have plausible deniability. Because people have said, why wouldn't Donald Trump? Because we all know Donald Trump is a straight shooter. Why wouldn't he come out and say, yes, there are aliens, we are not alone?
And I guess the thought would be, if one person is saying it, maybe it's crazy. But again, you have a list of people who are all kind of corroborating, no, there's something we haven't been told. Again, if you can actually have a measurable item that you can have in hand and then kind of go back and work as to how it was in the sky, you can't really say it's crazy. There's something to it at least.
If we go back to the war, World War II, and the Manhattan Project, that was a race for world domination. And we were fortunate, the United States, we won that war. We were the first to develop a nuclear weapon, and it changed the course of mankind.
Yeah.
Because we dropped the bomb on Japan, they surrendered, and it gave us a leg up. Of course, now we are not the only nuclear power. But imagine that this power, this technology that we are seeing play out, this ability not only to create speeds, also these, Anita, these crafts, they can create speeds underwater that we don't have the ability to. They can go from space to air to underwater. This is documented. We have these images on film that have been examined by physicists, by scientists, okay? But now imagine some of the other things that they have been documented doing. They have hovered over naval bases, over installations that are nuclear. And what they've done is, in one case, in Montana, there were 20 or so nuclear missiles. They disabled. They were hovering over them. And real quick, just so for me personally, again, going back to that story I was told, a large rectangular black object was hovering over a nuclear facility, and it disabled 20 nuclear warheads. There was no contact. It didn't actually touch the ground. It did so literally by hovering over this base. So now imagine, just follow along with me just for a second. If you are the country that can harness that technology, whether it be by speed, by the ability to disable somebody's nuclear weapons, you now are the world dominating power going forward. Which is why it makes perfect sense that this is happening in secret, that the US doesn't want Russia to know what we're doing, China doesn't want us to know what they're doing, and it is an arms race like we've never seen before.
Well, even if you take there's so much conversation this week even about Ukraine and Russia, but if you take what we saw in, say, World War II, the type of the type of interaction that two countries would have in war versus what we're seeing now with, say, there was a moment when Ukraine sent in drones in. Russia didn't know they were in their airspace, boom, 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 boom. All of a sudden, they're like, wait, what's going on? So this is like on a totally different level, but something of that sort.
It is. It's the same conversation, but with a technology that we are just not in possession of. And to your earlier point about whether or not it is, in fact, alien, there was a hearing. They brought in whistleblowers who said they had observed what they call non-human biologics. And what they are saying is they witnessed otherworldly beings and the bodies of otherworldly beings, that they are somewhere, they're in a non-disclosed area, but that the US has them, that Russia has them, that China has them. At least that's what we know. That's been leaked out by whistleblowers. Thank goodness for the whistleblowers. And another thing too, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but there is something called the UAP Disclosure Act, and it is languishing in Congress right now. And what they are, all the Congress people who are behind it, including Kristen Gillibrand and some others, is all they are asking is that stop treating the American citizens. By the way, a recent Pew survey found that 2 in 3 Americans believe
Right.
that we are not alone in the universe.
Right.
And we want answers. We just want the truth. Don't lie to us. This act would require the government to not keep secret what they know about the possibility that what we are seeing are not, in fact, earthly made vehicles.
Yeah.
And because the defense contractors, real quick, the defense contractors who have all the money invested, especially in this reverse engineering, they control the purse strings and they lobby. And there are a handful of congressmen who will not let this bill, the UAP Disclosure Act, it had some momentum back in about 2022, but it has since stalled. Donald Trump has said he would sign it, but we need it to get to his desk.
I was going to say, but it's not even getting to him.
It's not even getting to him. I talked to Dan Farah about whether or not he's convinced, after putting this documentary together, and this has been a passion project for years for him. There are some things he can't even tell us, but he is absolutely convinced.
If the whole thing is about making sure everyone knows everything, how is he saying there's
some of it's
things
classified?
He can't tell?
Some of it's classified. I have a 20-minute conversation with him. It's going to be on Fox Local. We just need to edit it, and I encourage you to watch it because it's a fascinating conversation. But he is convinced, after everyone that he's spoken to, that not only are we not alone, there are multiple civilizations that have been here. That our universe is a shared neighborhood, for lack of a better term, and he's absolutely convinced of it. And one more thing, he believes that by virtue of this film, The Age of Disclosure, he believes that at some point a sitting president will stand at a podium and tell the American people, we are not alone in the universe.
And does he say how long he thinks before we get to that
That's
point?
the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
So he has not said that, but he believes it will happen sooner rather than later.
Very interesting. Now, did having the conversation with him change anything for you?
For me personally, and I told him this, I go back to, Kaplan and I, Mike Kaplan from Good Day Chicago, we would have these great debates on GDC on
You
the air
having a debate with Mike Kaplan?
Yeah, he's Mr. It's a trick of the light. No, you don't know what you're talking about. There's no aliens, we're alone in the universe.
Yeah.
And I've had this conversation with so many people, even learned individuals, who were so quick to dismiss me. And I would joke with people, I'm a card-carrying member of the Royal Order of Tinfoil Hats. And for me, I'm watching this film, Anita, and I'm thinking to myself, at the very least, this documentary puts to rest the notion that we're crazy. That those of us who believe, because I've always found it arrogant to think, you really think that with trillions of galaxies that we're the only ones?
We're the chosen, yeah.
Right, and I get why it would be a secret, because can you imagine the impact psychologically, sociology, even theologically, if somebody knew for an absolute fact that we are not the sole beings in the universe?
Yeah.
That would shake us to our core.
Well, and I guess that's a part of the argument in terms, I'm sure over the years has been a part of the argument not to release. Like how much can the American public take?
Right.
Before it kind of shifts quite a bit.
Right, and going back to 1947 when they created the CIA, part of the reason that it is believed by some that they did so was because you can't, part of the legacy program is under the guise of the CIA, the Department of Energy, and defense contractors. Part of the reason that they didn't tell the public then was because what were you going to say, Anita? Yes, we found aliens. Yes, their technology is better than ours. There's nothing we can do. We're helpless.
Yeah.
Do you really want to tell the American public that there's somebody out there that could enslave us at any time, take us over, and there's nothing we can do?
Well, and then there's another aspect of it that goes into national security as well. In terms of how much you can say, especially if it ties back to something else. What are the risks for national security that may prevent it from being released?
Well, and all I can say is, if you get a chance to see the film, and again, it is streaming, thank goodness for whistleblowers. If we didn't have whistleblowers, we would not have this film, we would not have the information that we have, and it is overwhelming. I know you and I, we are in a truth-based, a fact-based business. And a lot of this, you could say, oh, it's circumstantial. But when, in one instance, an investigator went to a base, when 10 people are interviewed and they all describe the same thing, we have to assume that that's pretty credible.
Wow.